Coulthard gives us an update on the UFO whistleblowers and a lot more. It's time for another UFO News Roundup, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, here's what Ross had to say.
Why then can you not please provide this credible evidence to the public? This issue will not press forward when there is a possible debunk. And I completely agree with you. I think the whole UAP social media community is just going to have to be a lot more patient. Truth will out. Whistleblowers will come forward. But they need time. I'm in conversation with some of them at the moment where they're wrestling with that decision. A number of them are going through the DOPSA process, applying for the Defence Office Pre-Publication Security Review Approval System, like David Grush did. They're hoping that they can get clearance to speak before a public hearing of Congress.
Okay, so I thought that was great. So the whistleblowers are going through the DOPSA process, and they are hopefully going to speak in Congress, not just at field hearings, although that would be great, but actually in Congress. I think, if they were doing it actually in the physical building of Congress, that would be so much better. The optics of that would be better. You're going to get questions from more Congress people. It's just going to be so much better. However, if they did it at Lockheed Martin in front of a UFO, I'd be happy with that too. Of course, it'd probably be on the lawn somewhere with Lockheed Martin goons glowering at them. But either way, the whistleblowers are going through the same process that David Grush did, and they are hopefully going to start coming forward this year. So, a great update from Ross. He also encourages people to get off of his back about the big UFO. Hard to blame him. In other news, Tim Burchett is saying not to do CE5 because it's demonic.
I think that there is a movement in the UFO community that people are opening themselves to demonic suggestion. I know people are doing seances and things to bring these craft down or in or something like that. And to me, it reeks of a demonic suggestion. You open yourself up to that. My dad used to say, if you open yourself up to that, that's when it happens. And not within the UFO movement. But I worry about that because there is a growing community that's what they do, and they talk about their spiritualism and things like that, and it has all the essence of a classic seance.
Okay, does it have the essence of a classic seance? Well, I mean, kind of, I guess, in a way. And is it spiritual? Yes. Okay, so, I've been to several CE5s. Well, I want to say several, 3. We've done 2 within my UFO group, previously a MUFON group. Now we've broken away from MUFON and we're independent. And 1 just with a group of friends. And, with each with the first 2 CE5s, I asked my Reiki instructor, who has dealt with cosmic beings before, to kick it off, to initiate it. And she kicked it off by making contact or inviting beings of the highest possible vibration to join us. And she got the energy swirling in the group. We did our meditation. She sent the energy up, invited the beings to come down, and they came down. Now, I didn't see anything. I hardly ever see anything. I've had some cool experiences. Don't get me wrong. I've been really blessed over the last few years to have some really cool experiences, but most of them have not been visual. But as we were sitting in meditation, people were having these crazy experiences. And after the meditation, I didn't think anything had happened. And, it was a cloudy day. I didn't think any UFOs were going to be visible if they were there. And, we did the meditation. We looked up at the sky. People were taking pictures, but, I didn't see anything. Afterwards, people were coming up to me, telling me about their experiences. Independently, they weren't aware of what anybody else was saying, and they were having these out-of-body experiences or half out-of-body experiences where these beings of light were coming down and kind of dancing with them or interacting with them, and maybe dances too, but they were kind of swaying. And anyway, it was really interesting. And there were these beautiful beings of light. light, a multicolored light, like a rainbow kind of light, or blue or green. And some of the people were seeing objects in the sky, but they weren't like nuts and bolts UFOs. They were like, one of them described one object as like a barbell of light with pulses of light going, a rainbow light going from one end to the other. Very like trippy and other dimensional looking sounding. I asked Bonnie, my Reiki instructor, about it afterward. And she said, oh, yeah, well, those were the Reiki beings. Those were the beings that assist with the Reiki energy. And, and she's dealt with them before. She knows who they are. She knows what they look like. And now Reiki beings seem to be higher dimensional beings, which could be interpreted as spiritual beings. So, yes, I think there is a spiritual, metaphysical consciousness component to CE5. Then you could interpret that as a seance, I guess. Although I think that's maybe not putting it quite in the right light there. I think a seance is a distinct thing on its own, although obviously there are commonalities and similarities. You're inviting contact with NHI. Whatever form that takes. Both forms of contact, you are co-creating these events. The beings are interacting with your consciousness, and stuff is happening as a result of that. Now, you can have negative experiences. You absolutely can have negative experiences. Like I say, my Reiki instructor kicked it off by inviting beings of the highest possible vibration, and then she tried to get our vibration at a high level, and then, initiated the contact. So, go into it with love and light. That sounds so cheesy. Hey, I know. But since we are co-creating these events and they are interacting with our consciousness, you want your consciousness to be in a good place. So if you go into it with negative or hostile or fearful, mindset, you could invite negative reaction or negative contact. And indeed, I've heard of that multiple times. So, yeah. So, and is it demonic? Well, I don't believe in demons, but I do believe in negative entities. And I did have one interaction with a negative entity, separate from CE5. That was a ghost hunting event. So yeah, there is negative stuff out there, guys. There is negative stuff. So go into it with love and light. And, if you want to interact with cosmic forces, try to interact with the good stuff. Are there angels and demons? I don't know. I've researched near-death experiences extensively, and people do see angels. And sometimes people see demons, or what they interpret as demons. I think of them as positive and negative entities, but, the angels seem very angelic, and some of these people reporting these instances are not Christian. So that's interesting. But, whether angels or demons, I think you're getting into the religious part of this, and not the spiritual or consciousness part. Religion to me is a framework put on spiritual stuff, and I don't know if a framework should be applied to this stuff. I try to, in my own research and experiences, to filter out the religion and get to the spiritual meat. And that makes it difficult. I'm trying to research Hinduism right now, because I had a Kundalini awakening a couple of years ago. And, that clued me in that there's something to Hinduism. And I'm trying, but when you start studying it, there's a lot of religious overlay on that. So I'm trying to filter out the religion, and I'm looking for sources, getting to the spiritual essence of Hinduism without the religious overlay. But I've gone on long enough. Moving on to the next story. Oh, but Tim really is on the whole religious thing. I mean, that's who he is, and I respect that. I love Tim, and he has said some tone deaf stuff that I'm not going to get into, but it is what he believes, and I'm not going to bust his balls for that too much.
Tim, before I bring you in on this, I also like Ezekiel 1:4-6, quote, "Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it, and radiating out of its midst like the colour of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces, and each one had 4 wings. Now, I know there are lots of references in the Bible that sound extraordinary, paranormal, and anomalous, but I guess to my very biased ear, aren't we talking there about the possibility of non-human intelligence, flying saucers, UFOs, Tim?
Well, if I could address the Ezekiel part first, I've talked about that a lot and I've read up on that. And, I maybe not be I'm not as learned as my friend here from Georgia, but I've lived my whole life. I've read my Bible and I'm a born again Christian, and I have no problem with there being other life forms out there. I don't see the Bible limits that. I hear people say that it does, but I just don't, in the vastness of God's great universe. But Ezekiel, Ezekiel saw the wheel, and it was, this is a King James interpretation from, I believe, my friend there, is it Aramaic? Is that what the Bible was probably spoken in originally? I think, I'm not sure. But, this is a translation. So this is people that didn't have the advancements that we have and are comparing seeing something to something that they know, all they know about. And so I think Ezekiel he's talking about a flying saucer of sorts.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to get to that because that's interesting. So Tim Burchett is seeing UFOs in the Bible. Many people do. But, okay, so Tim Burchett is seeing UFOs in the Bible, and then in UFO Contact, he's seeing biblical references. He's seeing angels and demons. So, I think that's interesting. It shows that he's open-minded enough to look for UFOs in Scripture, but he's Scripture oriented enough to look for Scripture in UFOs. So I think that's an interesting point to make and to keep in mind when talking about Tim and people that have a religious framework on all of this. And, I don't blame anybody for having a religious framework, but, it is what it is. And, it's not always a helpful thing in trying to, scare people away from CE5 by saying, you're dealing with demonic forces is probably not a super helpful thing to do. I think, I give Stephen Greer a lot of crap because of spreading toxicity and disinformation about alien abductions. But one thing that he has, two main things that he's done really well: bringing forth great witnesses and promoting CE5. Because in a way, we don't need official UFO disclosure from the government because we can go out and interact with the phenomenon directly. And Dr. Stephen Greer, the lovely Dr. Stephen Greer, has popularized that mode of contact. And I really have to give him props for that. I think there's a lot there. We do need official government disclosure because we need oversight of the control group and of the shady black projects that have been going on and doing shady things these many years. Clearly, we need oversight of that. But in a way, we don't need a UFO disclosure from the government because we can go out and get it ourselves. And I think that being scared away from that contact or that mode of contact probably isn't great. But you do have to go into it with love and light and openness. So you can have negative experiences. Tim isn't entirely wrong about that, but you can also dance with beings of light. Okay, I've yammered on enough about that, although I could go on about that. Anyway, moving on. From David Haith, breaking down more information from Colonel John Alexander, a truly fascinating figure in all of this. Okay, so on this one point, does John Alexander believe in UFO crash retrievals? He has said that he, didn't believe in that. I would have thought that somebody that was read into the program would be obligated to lie about it. And the question with John Alexander has always been, in my mind, how deeply has he been read into these programs? Has he been read into the program? Maybe he hasn't. Because now he's saying, from David Haith, and thank you, David, since the Grush revelations, retired U.S. Army Colonel John Alexander is wavering over his assertions that there were never any secret crash retrieval programs. Colonel Alexander, who created an interagency group to study UFOs, told Matt Ford his conclusions were based on his firsthand experience. He said, "You get into the thinking on this, and has it changed? Yeah, but my experience, and this is where it's different, and I'm still waiting, hopefully, from Grush, absolutely no." Near the end of the interview, he said, "I've had to make a major shift in my thinking as to accepting the possibility that I was really, really wrong." And again, these very senior people say I'm really, really wrong. But people who were more senior to them earlier said I was right. So again, my firsthand experience is no. Secondhand says, I know there's more to it. So if he was read into the program, then he was obligated to lie about it. Would he now be backtracking on that and saying, hey guys, maybe there is a crash retrieval program? Or was he kind of forced into saying that because of this new information, and it would have looked weird if he hadn't said that? What I'm trying to get at is, was he read into the program or not? And Colonel John Alexander is a fascinating figure. Maybe, hopefully, I'll get a chance to interview him. He's been in this for a long time, and he probably knows a lot. But if he doesn't know about the crash retrieval program, maybe he doesn't know as much as I would have thought that he knew. But does he know about the crash retrieval program, and he's simply obligated to tell untruths about it because he has been, as I said, read into the program, and that's what happens when you are. Which way does the pendulum swing on that? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Meanwhile, Lou Elizondo corrects some information on his book release. Again, he says, many have speculated the release of my book in November. Please know there is no official release date yet. Once a date has been identified, I will be the first to let you know. Thanks for your patience. And many people have been criticizing Lou, not just for the book release date. I think that's a dodgy date in November. That's kind of a problematic date in my mind. But just for having a book at all. Many people are really going after Lou as being a gatekeeper, a grifter or whatever for having a book. And, I just have to give my little editorial on that. We wouldn't have The Day After Roswell or so many other books, and, all the information in those books if it weren't for books. Clearly, we need books and the information in those books. And, I would ask people to, be cool about Lou and his book. Allow the man to write a book. There's nothing wrong with writing a book. I'm a novelist. I like books. Books are good. But, I understand your point, and you feel like he should just come out with all this information independently of a book. But that's the way it is. And, if he is trying to make a buck off of this, we need to incentivize UFO disclosure. So allow UFO disclosure to be incentivized. If that's the motivation, and it may be, it may not be. But yeah, let's encourage people to come out with this information would be my suggestion. Last but not least, on that UFO podcast, Willie Streer says there may be a device that can detect alien abductions.
Peter asks, is there any evidence of any kind of technological device that can detect or deter abductions? For example, a siren, strobe, or electromagnetic pulse triggered when conditions are met, suggesting the visitor's presence?
Well, I think there is. And I think we've had it a long time, and I'll tell you why. Back when before I published Communion, I got contacted by David W. Webb. David Webb was a major player in the inside. He was in space sciences, and if you look at his CV on Wikipedia, you'll see that he was consulting with every alphabet agency in the world. I mean, in the U.S. government. And he came out to the cabin. He had dinner with us in the city. We became friends. He introduced me to an allergist who helped me with the allergic responses I was getting when the visitors came close to me. He knew all about this in 1987, all about it. And we would always know that the visitors had been there during that period because this strange little airplane would very high up, and you'd look at it, it would be white against the sky, and its wings were so narrow that it looked like it was going to fall out of the sky.
So there you go. I'll let you watch the rest of that at your leisure. But yeah, Willie says the government was aware every time there was an incident and they would send the plane out. So how would they have known if they didn't have some sort of device? Maybe there are alternate ways they could get that information. For example, one theory or one story about the Eisenhower contract with the Greys is that he gave them permission to abduct people, or a certain number of people, but they had to tell him when they performed an abduction. So, you know, again, it's hard to say if that story is true or not. But there is one alternate idea about how the government could know if there was an abduction, and you know, satellites and so on. I don't know, you know, what was available in the 80s when this was going on in terms of satellite technology. But you know, it's entirely possible that they do have some sort of device that can detect this. They certainly have some ways of detecting UFO events and contact experiences. Black helicopters will show up, planes will show up, Men in Black will show up, and sometimes like pretty much immediately. So clearly the government, the control group, has ways of detecting this stuff. Let me know how you think they are detecting that in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button and the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, grab a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Also, channel members frequently get to see videos hours ahead of everybody else. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.